I don't know what your excuses are of not accomplishing your dreams in life. And here we have Michaela, who could be having excuses. She has reasons why she might have not succeeded before, but then she chose not to use the excuses and she's been achieving great things. One of them having to be a co author in a book that we put together last year, talking about how to write and publish your book, where we have 16 authors tell their stories. And Michaela was one of them. Why? Because she's written and published before. That's why she's here. Hey, hi, Michaela.
How are you? Glad to be here.
Glad to that you're on our show today. Say hi to all the viewers, the listeners.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah, and we are really excited to have you here because I know we are going to share a lot of some inspiration from you.
Well, thank
And
you for having me. I'm glad to be here.
yes, and for those who may be joining us now, we are tuned to Now Tell Us podcast. This is your host, Anthony Morore, and I want us to just get started officially by uh, just a few things uh, being put in order. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, share this episode with all your friends. Be inspired by Michaela. And if you have a question, ask. If you have any comment, we love feedback from our viewers, our listeners. We'll appreciate. And now, this is officially Now Tell Us. Here we go. Hi. Where are you, Michaela, if I may start there?
I am in the United States in Louisiana.
Oh, wonderful. And how is it there where you are? We love knowing about other parts of the world.
Um, it's nice. It's starting to get a little chilly finally, so we might be headed towards our fall, but we'll see. It gets tricky in October. It's
O-
ranges several different degrees throughout the day, so it's just tricky in October, but it's nice.
Okay, wonderful. Enjoy your day today as it is.
Yes.
Now, I would like us to go way back, even before we go into some of the things that we want to share with our friends that are really inspiring. Let's go back to when you were born. Maybe not the year, but how you were born, where you were born. Were you born there?
Um, I was born in Houston, Texas, which is where I'm from, and that was several years ago. Um, I mean, I grew up in a typical, what I would think a typical American family. I'm an only child, but just I'm a Texas girl that lives in Louisiana now.
I love Texas.
Yeah, me too.
And a question I always ask people who I see who come from Texas is, do you know how to ride horses?
I did take some horseback lessons in middle school, but I haven't done it in a long time.
Okay, if I come there, I would definitely get to know how to ride a horse. Now, how was it growing up for you?
I think my life was pretty typical, but other than one way is that, and I'm sure we'll get into this more, I actually was born with a disability. I've been either visually impaired or legally blind my whole entire life. So that made things and always a little bit different than someone who doesn't have a disability. So that always adds an extra caveat to everything. Depending on what you want to know and what we're talking about, I always had to come up with different ways of doing things. I've always said that 9 times out of 10, if I do something a certain way, it's probably to accommodate my vision. Anyway,
Wow. And wow. So born legally blind and you've been and that's a big excuse someone could give of not doing anything in life, but then You are here, you are achieving. So you went through college, I mean, you
Yeah.
went through school, through college. Tell us about that experience.
I've actually I did well stateside. It's K through 12th grade, kindergarten through 12. I did my undergraduate at university, and then I actually ended up getting my master's in 2016, and that had different challenges. I don't know what people do internationally, but I've always had accommodations to help me be able to do what everyone else can do. I just have to do it differently. So I always had like preferential front row seating so I could see, things in the classroom. Um, Extended time to do assignments or take tests. When I was getting into university, I had to take what is done in America, either the SAT or the ACT. Predominantly in the South, we take the ACT. Is a 4-hour exam under normal circumstances. However, for me, it was a 10 to 12-hour exam because I would sit in my guidance counselor's office and do a section a day, which took 3 or 4 hours on an audio tape while I listened to the questions. And I would circle the answers in the test booklet, and she would transfer them to the Scantron. And so that's how I had to take the exam that got me accepted into a university stateside. Now, that was over almost 30 years ago. So the way that that test is administrated for people with disabilities, I've heard has come a long way since then. So it's done differently now, but that's how, in fact, I had to do it. And when I did take the GRE, which is what we used to have to do in the States for getting into grad school, a lot of graduate schools have gotten away from that exam. But when I was coming up, we still had to take it. I had to sit in a cubicle, and instead of being given 3 to 4 hours to take the exam, I had up to 8 hours to take the exam, and I had someone reading it to me, and then she would, I think it was a her who was reading it to me, I would click the answers on the computer screen so that I could do the test.
Hmm. And you cleared college. What have you done? What did you do after you cleared college?
Well, I actually got married right after I graduated from undergraduate, but my undergraduate was a BA, and sociology was a double minor in English and history because I thought I was going to teach at the time. Um, and then life kind of happened, and so I ended up getting divorced from my first husband, and then I had started grad school a year after getting divorced at a master's in social work, not what I ended up getting my degree in, my graduate degree in. And then I had met someone, and we married, and we ended up moving to New Hampshire, and that's when I got my master's in political science and American government and a grad certificate in ancient classical history. And I use these degrees in my education and my life experience to write on a wide variety of things. So,
Hmm. So you got divorced. Had you had any children by then, by the time that you got divorced?
not
Or
with him. I did
I,
with my second husband.
oh, so you got remarried soon after?
In '07, I got remarried, and that is the father of my two children. So,
Oh, so you have got two children.
yes.
Boy, girl, what are they?
Yes, my daughter is 14 and my son is 11.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Thank you.
Wish them a good life.
Yes, I will. I work I hope they will have a very life that they want to live and live their best life possible as they keep growing.
Yeah, that's and now then when you think you've been through the worst, you still meet with another challenge as the children are growing. Tell us about that.
Well, like I said, I got remarried in 2007, and I think someone is trying to come in my door. Hold on one second. I'm so sorry about this. But anyway, in 2007, I got remarried, and then I was with him for 10 years. And apologies for me having to get up from where I was at. Um, I was with him for 10 years when he unexpectedly passed away in 2017. So I've been soloing parenting for the last 7.5 years.
What happened to him?
Of my husband,
Yeah.
He unexpectedly passed away from medical complications.
Oh, sorry for that.
What are you doing? Sorry,
Hey,
my dog decided to pop in.
that's your daughter. She's a beautiful one.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, she's the one who was coming in.
Yes, she was. She was at a
Okay.
friend's over birthday
Okay.
party.
Oh, that's good. Now. And
So
then, yep, go on.
after he passed away, I moved back to Louisiana where my parents and friends and family live, which is why I'm in Louisiana. And so we've been traveling the journey of trying to figure things out after that. So always something.
How has it been from that time to now?
um Challenging. I know some things. I'm still trying to figure some things out. I mean, when I come on interviews or when I write, I've never said that I have all the answers or I know everything. I just can share what I've learned, and I've learned a lot. There's an expression that I know we use stateside about what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Well,
Mhm.
there's an author version of that of what doesn't kill you gives you something to write about, and I have a lot to write about.
That's a good
So,
perspective. That's a good perspective. When did you start writing? What was your first?
oh gosh, I've always written. I've always felt drawn to the written word and the desire to write. I was a little bit of a odd duck growing up. I don't know why this occurred to me in second grade, which would have been 86, 87 when I was eight-ish, I think. Yeah, 7 or 8. I think there was a Supreme Court case going on in the States about whether burning the American flag should be considered within the parameters of the First Amendment rights of freedom of speech. I disagreed with that decision. Why I was paying attention to that when I was in second grade, I don't know, but it came up on my radar, and I had it in my mind. No one told me to go write an editorial that I needed to speak my mind and let people know what I thought about it. So I submitted an editorial in the local newspaper where I was living at the time in Texas, and it was published. And then in fourth, yeah, I know I was a little bit weird. I don't know many second graders that are worried about politics. Never mind, think they have to write about it. But
Hmm.
anyway, indicator that I would get my master's in political science. Go figure. But and then in fourth grade, I wrote my first poem. Obviously, what I wrote then, I don't write today, but the seeds were planted, and I always felt like I was supposed to write and wanted to write. And then I've gone on to write several things since then. So anyway,
Politics at second grade. That's interesting. See,
yeah, yeah. Like I said, I was a little bit
it's
growing
yeah.
up, but I
Politics.
mean,
Yeah.
sorry,
Go.
mom, I'm fixing to call you out on this, but I grew up with a mom who always watched, I don't know what carries internationally, but she was always watching like C-SPAN and political shows like Crossfire and the summer of 87 when the Oliver North Iran Contra, whatever it was called, was going on when we lived in Dallas for a summer. She had to watch the hearings before we went out and did anything that day. So I grew up with a mom who was very involved in paying attention to politics. So I guess it was inevitable.
Is this still a main thing that you write about, or what's your main thing now that you write about?
I have 6 series that I'm writing, and it'll probably eventually be 8. But I write a series on what I that's called Now I See, which is about my life that we've talked about what it's to travel, what I call my 38 triple D of living a life through disability, divorce, and death, and learning how to not just survive but thrive in it. So I write on that. And then the Finding Grace Through series, which is a more recent one that came out in March, is a more practical approach to help other people who are going through grief and loss about what I've learned and how I've gotten through it. And so I do that one. And then there is one on politics about We the People. And that's actually kind of on everyone's minds right now because stateside election in 1870s or something. I've lost count. But so that's kind of current for the United States right now. But, and I write one on my faith. Um, that's 4. And then I write on motherhood, that's 5. And then I write on things that I want my children to take with them as they go out on their own journeys in life. So that's 6 series right now that I write on.
Wow, 6 series.
Yeah.
To anybody who's listening out there, this is a challenge to each and every one of us. And as you can see, the wide range of topics that Michaela covers. I've met with people. I asked this question in one of our groups about writing, and I asked, what could be one of the challenges that you face as a writer? And people came up with the idea, or rather, put down as a challenge that they can't find a topic to write about, and you're writing on a range of
I don't
topics.
have that problem. That's not my problem at all. I heard one say once upon a time that if you write what you know about or what you love, writing comes easier because if it interests you and you're passionate about it, then you'll actually be motivated to write it. So, I mean, I'm not saying you can't, as a writer, branch out into other things, but I feel like if I stay in my wheelhouse of what interests me and I know about it, I enjoy it and I can actually know what I'm talking about and it comes more easily. So that's why I'm a predominantly a nonfiction writer. Like, I respect the heck out of fiction writers, but that is not my wheelhouse. My brain doesn't work that way, and I'm smart enough to know stay away from it because it does not work for my brain. So I write nonfiction.
So I guess having written such, you now, and since now you don't have a challenge with coming up on topics to write about, could you be having a list that you are thinking, oh, I need to write this about that, about this? How many books could you be having in mind to write on?
Oh, a bunch, which is why I don't write one a year. People are like, you should just do one a year. I'm like, I'll die before I write all of them because if I see through all of the plans I have for each of these series, not counting probably the seventh or eighth series that'll be coming eventually, I think just the basic titles, not counting companion books or journals or anything, uh, it's easily 80 or 90 titles in all six series.
Okay. So I'll
Yeah.
send someone who's been having a challenge on coming up with ideas on to you to come and get some. But anyway, you can share one or two things of now through your experience on coming up with ideas. What could one do to come up with ideas?
I think you just have to feel like what you're interested in, what you're passionate about, and what comes to your mind, and what you're always thinking on, and what your life experience is. I mean, I think that's what's so cool about the creative process and the inspiration is you can be anywhere and get an idea. I mean, it was a single book, it won't be a series, but I remember being on vacation. I think it was 2018 or 19, might have been 19. We were on coming back from the Carolinas, and we were at the beach on the Atlantic side of the U.S. You know, East Coast side of the continental U.S. where the Atlantic is. Um, and we were in the ocean, and I had a huge brainstorm of ideas that came to my mind. I'm going, oh, please let me get to my phone or get to a tablet and pen and write this down before I leave it because I am not taking pen and paper and a phone in the Atlantic Ocean. Sorry, not
Yeah.
happening. Not a good idea. So I was nowhere where I could write this down. So I'm like, please stay in my head, please stay in my head so I can get to, something to write it down. And I did. And it was the book called Living the Beach Life. And then I can be sitting in church and get a whole book outline when I'm listening to a sermon, or I can be, funny story, moment of confession here. Actually, what started most of these series that we're talking about is when I was in grad school in 2006 in Louisiana, and I had a roommate. She watched. I don't know if you would have heard of this show. It's not on anymore, but they rerun it and you can stream it. But when HBO between 1998 and 2004, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
Sarah Jessica Parker, Sex in the City on HBO.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it is famous worldwide. Although I have not watched. I mean, I can't say I ever watched it, but I know it.
it's a little bit of a guilty pleasure, but
Yeah.
truth be told, but the point is that what this has to do with is the main character, Sarah Jessica Parker, for anyone who may not know what I'm talking about or has watched it, she was a columnist in New York City. She was a writer. Her name was Carrie Bradshaw was the main character. And she wrote about things that she was interested in: love, romance, men and women's relationships, gender identity back in the day, about how they play roles in, relationships, men and women's roles in society and all the different things. Yes, of course, sex, but, other things too. And so I thought to myself when watching the show, wait a minute, I want to write. She's writing on things that she's interested in, and they're columns. So why can't I write on my own interest in little short articles or chapters in a book? And so I first formed the idea for the religious series. And then when I became a mom, the mom series came along. And then obviously, because of my grad school work, the political series, and on and on and on it goes. So, I mean, that proves my point. Creativity can come from church, it can come from being on a vacation, it can come from I was watching a show on TV and I got literally the format for all 5, 6 series that I write out. So, that's the way it
Hmm.
works.
Wow. So if coming up with an idea to write about is not a challenge for you, what could be your biggest challenge in your writing journey?
Um, I think for a lot of people, and I struggle with this recently because I've had a lot of things come up that's taken me from my usual writing routine, is that finding the dedicated time and sticking to the committed time that you've set aside for your writing. I don't know who said it, but there was an author that was asked, "What is the secret to writing?" And she said, "Applying the ass to the seat." Excuse my French, meaning you just have to sit down and do it.
Okay. Just being there in front of you.
Yeah.
I have a mentor which also shares his story in the book, a wonderful, inspiring story. It's also in this book. His name is Jonas. He say all you've got to do is to sit on the computer, put your fingers on the keyboard, and just type whatever it is that you want to type, and
Yeah.
you get going.
You know,
Wow.
a lot of people ask me, how do you make time for it? And I have to admit that earlier in my life, sorry, I didn't have as much time. Like when I was in grad school, because of my vision, when I'm in school, all I do is do schoolwork. Like I don't have time to do anything else. So while I was writing for all the professors, I wasn't doing my own writing, but I was getting all the brainstorms. So I would organize the ideas and tuck them away. And then when I got out of grad school, I started writing. And so I didn't have time to write then. But as I got out of grad school, I switched what time I used for grad school work for writing time. So I would write at that time. My kids were a lot younger and they were, um, I guess, let's see, that was 2016. So yeah, they were 6 and 3 when I got out of grad school. So I traded what would have been nap time for my son at that time and evening time for writing instead of doing grad school work like I had been doing for 5 years.
Hmm.
So while it wasn't a lot of time, I still stayed committed to the time that I had in my day. So it's not so much about, oh my gosh, I don't have time. It's about finding the nooks and crannies in your schedule. If it's important to you, we make time for what we want to prioritize. And so if you want to write and you really do, you'll find some way in your schedule to make it work. It may be 30 minutes a week, it may be 30 minutes a day. Now that my kids are older and they're in school Monday through Friday, 8 to 3, I use that time to write on just about a daily basis when I stay on track. So my writing routine is when I'm on track is usually 9 to 10 in the morning to 12 or 1 in the afternoon because I can only work visually for a couple of hours before I have to take a break and then come back to it. So I use my mornings for my writing time. That's what works for my current season of life that I'm in. And when I'm able to stick to it, I get a lot done. And that's a lot of people go by word count. I don't really go by word count. That's not a bad way to do it if that's how you want to do it. Like they'll say, I want to write 50 words or 1,000 words today. Okay, that's fine if that works for you. I mainly look at the overall project of the book outline that I'm working on. And I know that during the school year, because I try and get all my writing done during the school year and not during the summer. Like I said, this is just what works for me in my current season of life of being a single mom and even though they're older, 2 kids still in the house. Um, so I try and write mostly during the school year. If it's a 40 chapter book and I know there is 5 school days in the week, Monday through Friday, obviously, then if I write 5 days a week, depending on the type of material it is, I can probably get 2 chapters done a day. So then that means I need 20 days to write that book.
20 days to write a book. Okay.
So that's how I do it.
Wow, that's good. That's good.
So the point is just whatever your schedule allows for, find that time and stick to it, whatever that is, daily or weekly or whatever you do.
Yeah, just find the time, just get there, get writing. Now,
Yep.
being visually impaired and you're writing, what's the process of writing? As how do you do?
My
I-
heart would like to be able to write pen and paper and then transfer it to a computer, but as much as I, as a pure to the craft, would love to do that and see the value in that, I don't got time for that.
uh,
So I just write it out on the computer, and
yeah,
then
and
it.
I guess if someone now, I've seen, I've experienced people who have a disability of a kind in one area become very good in another area. And this is what I'm guessing, because actually for you to type well on a keyboard, you don't have to see the keyboard. So I'm guessing you're really good on the keyboard. How fast are you?
I haven't ever timed myself, but I'm not really looking at the keyboard when I'm typing. I took a lot of
Yeah.
typing classes,
Mhm.
and I do a lot for memorization of just knowing my placement of my fingers on the keyboard. So
Yeah, yeah, that's what the great typist
a
are.
lot of people write their books through recording, which I could do, and that would save myself even more time. And it's a pretty good idea, especially if you have visual issues. But I also know that my own personal writing process, I do better if I'm thinking through it as I'm writing it while I'm typing it out. So I don't choose to do that, but I could.
Another thing that many people mention as a challenge is the area of marketing. Uh, is
I'm
this a
not good at
thing for
marketing.
you? How many people? Yeah.
I'm not good at marketing. It's not my strong suit, but there's lots of things I know you can do. And I keep, every time I launch a new book, I try and bring more aspects into it and play with different things. It's a lot of it's trial and error. And it, well, first of all, it depends on how you publish. If you're traditionally published, I don't know how the publishing houses choose to do marketing. I'm sure they do it somewhat similarly, and they may do different ways and different tools in their toolbox for marketing than self-publishing. All of my books are self-published, so I know much more about how we market in the self-publishing world than compared to maybe what traditional book publishing is. I can't really speak to that. I know in self publishing, if you're on the Amazon platform of KDP, there's obviously Amazon ads, there's Author Central, there's a lot of book promotion per sites, promotion sites, and then there's obviously, of course, social media and, sending things out email wise. So it's just you have to find, I think, what you strive at and try and do your best at it.
Hmm. It's good. So, is if you've been, I mean, and the people who are listening, if they have been through some challenges, they can always find their way about. Like you've seen Michaela, she's writing, she's gone through challenges, still got a smile on her face. That's a good one, and still moving on. And
Fine.
yeah, and that's good. And we wish you all the best as you keep on moving on. What's the big thing that is in plan for the future for you, Michaela?
Well, obviously, I'm going to keep writing. I'll keep doing interviews like this. I did do my TEDx talk in 2023. So that was a good thing to get off my bucket list that I wanted to do. So I felt good about that. It's on YouTube. Um, I think for me, it's just to keep writing what I want to write. And then with finding grace through grief, I'm wanting to find a way to create it into a program that people can use to help them work through their grief and loss.
Hmm. So, in addition to being a writer, you're also a speaker, and we can tell by how you're presenting yourself here. So, you're also a speaker. You've done a TEDx. I haven't done a TEDx myself.
Yeah,
Congratulations, Michaela.
thank you. I
Uh
was
huh.
glad about that. So, yeah, I do like
Yeah.
to speak. And I think eventually down the road, as my kids get older, I could see myself actually speaking more professionally on like stages, but that'll have to wait till a later season because the main thing in this season, other than professional aspirations, is that I am to be there for my kids. And so I choose to stay closer to home.
You've got all it takes. We can see that. You've got all it takes. And we are wishing that your dream becomes a reality sometime soon.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wow. 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 For anybody who may be joining us now, we are talking with Michaela S. Cox, a writer and a mother, single mother, bringing up kids single handedly and achieving that. And she's got plans for the future. She's got a lot of writing to do, and she doesn't use the excuses of the challenges that she's been through to be sad. Otherwise, she would be nowhere here. She's going on. She's got some great courage, some great motivation, and I believe that you've been encouraged by her sharing of the story. We are almost coming to the end of the show, but before we go, we usually ask our guests to leave us with something that we should never forget. What's that for Michaela?
I would say that life is short and there's no guarantees of having a tomorrow. We're not promised that. And so I would say that people need to choose well so that they can live their best lives and not just survive, but thrive.
That's a very good advice from Michaela. Thank you very much, Michaela.
Thank you for having me, and I hope this has provided something that can empower others on their own journey.
I also believe so. And for anybody who's listening, please give us feedback. We love feedback. Let us know how we've done here. And by the way, before we go,
Mhm.
I believe that someone could be interested in reaching out to you. How would they do that?
Um, all of my books are on Amazon, and I have a website called myheartfeltmeditations.com, and they can find me on Facebook under Anna Michaela Cox.
Wow, wow, wonderful. So go to www.myheartfeltmeditations.com and connect with Michaela. Once again, thank you very much, Michaela, for coming to our
Thank you
show.
for having me.
Yeah, we really appreciate it. Wow, that's about it for today. It's been a wonderful show together with Michaela. And I hope you enjoyed it. Those who are watching or listening, even the recorded version, please keep on facing life positively. Keep on living. Life is short. Just do what you've got to do. Chase your dreams. Go after your dreams. As Michaela shares in her title of a chapter, follow the path to your dreams. Yes. And if you've been looking to write a book, go get this one. Read Michaela's stories, read Anthony's story, read all the other people who've participated in writing this book, and become a writer. Or maybe you are even a writer already. Can find some inspiration to write better, to market better. They're all full there. That's about it. This has been Now Tell Us. I've been your host, Anthony Murore. And together with our very wonderful guest, Michaela S. Cox, we're saying bye for now. Bye.